Good evening from New York. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Journeys. Thank you for joining us. CWS Journeys is about having conversations with people about their journey in life and how they use their gifts and talents to help others. Most of you who will tune into the show this month will have noticed that I've only invited women for the month of March in celebration of Women's History Month. Our guest tonight is Laticha Brown, who I'll introduce to you on the other side of the break. But thanks for tuning in. I'll take a short break. Stay tuned. We're back with Miss Laticha Brown. Leticia, good evening and welcome to CWS Journeys.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Laticha Brown is a full-time fashion merchandising management faculty member of the Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT. She received her BS in marketing from Hampton University. Upon graduation, Leticia started her merchandising career at Calvin Klein Inc. She has held various buying positions working for Polo Ralph Lauren, Saks Fifth Avenue, Bloomingdale's.com, and Walmart Inc. After 15 years in the industry, Leticia decided to take her passion and expertise of fashion and teach the next generation of leaders. Leticia, where were you born and how would you describe this woman we've come to know as Laticha Brown?
Well, I was born here in New York City. I was actually born in Staten Island, then moved to Coney Island, and then my parents raised my brother and I on Long Island. So I'm a New York girl, and now I'm a woman who's continuing to grow and evolve and really learning to know who I am and being very proud of that.
Can you give us a glimpse into your life while growing up at ages 9 and 16?
9 and 16. So
Yeah.
9, my brother was born when I was 8. So by the time I was 9, now I have a sibling. So I wasn't an only child anymore. So really had to learn to share and to be compassionate with someone and really be excited about that part of my life. At at 16, that was high school time. So very involved in high school. So being a captain of cheerleader, president of student council, and this really trying to be a leader and gain those leadership skills.
So who would you say you became at 21?
At 21, I was a young lady at this time, still getting to know who I was and who I wanted to be. So at this particular point, I was a senior in college and just understanding what was going to be my next step. So as you mentioned, I graduated from Hampton University in Virginia, so I had to come back home. So coming back home, what was that going to be like? And what was my life going to be like? So I wanted to take it and kind of start from there.
I want to go back from 21. What is a favorite memory you have of your parents? You could start with your mom.
I would say my mom is so much fun. She's one of my best friends. So she just always instilled in me to be a lady. Of course, she would always say that. And she just has a calm presence. So I think I get that from her as well. And then she's a very stylish lady and smart as well. My dad, he's quiet storm. So he's serious but very sweet. But he's a pretty quiet person, I would say.
Oh. So when you were teaching,
Yes.
I'm going to fast forward. When you were teaching, whose personality you believe comes out when you're a teacher, mom or dad?
I would say a little bit of both, but if I can I add another family member?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so my aunt, so I have an Aunt Robin, she's actually deceased, but she was an educator as well. And it's so funny because I never thought I would teach, but now looking back, I think I take on a lot of her style of teaching, being very direct with the students, but also nurturing and having compassion and just really wanting to see them thrive.
So your aunt made an impact in your life?
Oh, definitely.
When you were growing up?
Definitely.
Wow. Do you remember, were these women the kind of women that told stories, your mom and your aunt?
My mom, my aunt, my grandmother as well. My mom's mother, we had the same birthday. So I just felt a very strong connection with her. And then I have another aunt who I'm very close to, and then grandmother on my dad's side, who's actually 91. So lots of women in my family that I really take a lot of inspiration
Since
from.
this is Women's History Month, I
Yes.
I just want to go there because I'm usually fascinated with stories.
Uh-huh.
I grew up in a home with 6 sisters, so I love to hear stories that they have to tell. If these women in your family were to tell a story or stories to a group of the younger generation, your grandmother, your aunt, your mom, and so on, what kind of story you think they'll be telling? Give me a particular story you think they might tell.
I think probably a story of family, about family, or at a family event. So just being so happy. And I know Thanksgiving is always a huge holiday with us. So being able to talk about things like that and bringing up stories from when they were young and just living in New York City and the excitement that they have and just seeing how much they've done for their families would probably be one of the key stories there.
And let's say you were to eavesdrop a conversation between your dad, your mom, or among them, your dad, your mom, your aunt, telling a stranger about you. You just happen to walk in the room or maybe passing by. What do you think specifically dad would say about you, mom would say about you, and your aunt would say about you?
I think they would say that I'm a kind person, very compassionate, but headstrong. So if I set my mind to do something, I'm definitely going to do that. Whether, even if they've given advice that maybe perhaps I shouldn't, I'm probably going to go ahead and do that anyway. So just being prepared for that. Very respectful young lady, they'll say, and very kind, but just be careful of the tone that she may have when she has something set that she wants to do.
This type of personality or character trait, how did you see it helping you when you were in merchandising?
Well, that's probably a big part of it because the business, and that's a key part, that it is a business, the fashion industry. So you do have to be assertive, respectful, of course, but that main part is being very assertive about your business and making sure that people understand what your strategy is and what the point that you're trying to get across.
When did you first got introduced to merchandising, and how did that happen?
That I was still in college and I knew, so I was a marketing major, but that's so broad. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. And a very good friend of the family, her name is Pinky Dukes. She was a buyer at the time. So she was able to take me into the market and I shadowed her for a day. And that's when I really decided that this is something that I ultimately want to do.
Was it ever intimidating in the beginning for you?
Definitely. Very intimidating because you're just not so sure about it. And a lot of times, even if you don't see anyone that looks like you, that can become a little bit intimidating. But then it's also something that can make you stronger to make sure that you want to reach those steps.
What are some key things that you will look for when you're a buyer to know that you're on the right track?
Okay, so skill set for that person or?
Yes, for that.
So for that person, you have to be very proactive, have a sense of urgency, really understanding. So we talk about hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills being knowing math, being great at retail math and Excel, things like that. Those are so important. And then those soft skills, being able to present yourself and being able to present a product or perhaps negotiating with someone. So you have to use both. So it's that creative and analytical sides of your brain.
Exciting?
Very exciting. No one day is the same.
Give us a story or a situation, if there's any, when you were really perhaps doubtful that it would work out the way you wanted to work out, but it actually did because of some skills that you used.
I think even before I worked directly in the buying world, just my introduction into it. So I did it a little bit backwards than many students do today, where they intern while they're in college. I interned after. So I had already graduated from college, came back home, and I was on a photo shoot with a friend for the Source magazine, if we remember the Source magazine. Yes. And I met someone else. So that was part of networking. Didn't even realize it at that time, but networking was so important. I met someone who said, well, he asked me, well, what are you looking for? What do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a part of the fashion industry, not sure how to get into it. So he introduced me to someone who worked at DKNY, and then I became her intern. So that was kind of the start for me. So I wasn't sure where it was going to, how I was going to start this career or really get into it. And that was kind of the start there.
So for a young person
Yes.
thinking about getting into this industry, what would be your best advice for them?
I would say know the industry. So when I say that, I mean know it in and out, know what the fashion industry stands. But besides just the designers of the world, understanding the business part of it too, what that means. Try to get as much knowledge as they possibly can. So I talked about interning. Definitely try to intern or shadow someone, work in retail. It's fine to work in it just so you can see what kind of goes on behind the scenes and get those steps down before you ultimately try to move on into that career.
I want to go back to that, to parents. And
Okay.
any words of wisdom that they give you that still resonate with you today?
I think they would always tell me to, of course, things like being on time for work and working extra hard, but then also being a sponge. So taking in, maybe not always having to talk or say something, but, really listening. So actively listening and being that sponge and kind of taking all of that experience and anything that you can from those senior level executives or supervisors.
If you were not a merchandiser, or as it is now, an educator teaching at FIT, what do you think you would be doing?
I think at one time I did have a dream of being the next Oprah Winfrey. So somehow
Really?
being on a screen and speaking, whether it's about news or just culture, entertainment, something along those lines.
Culture. So what shifted?
I think because I've realized that I had this passion for the fashion industry and then also the business side of it when I realized that I was pretty good in math, that I could combine the two and that it could be fun if I really worked hard at it. So that's where it kind of shifted there.
And what do you find fascinating about merchandising?
I think so we talk about seasons and how different trends come about every season or how some trends may come back, but just the change of it, always seeing it evolving, different things that are happening, whether it be different fabrications that people are using or different silhouettes, just that change is always exciting for me.
The change. And what drives you crazy? What are some of your pet peeves about merchandising?
I mean, things like when maybe a trend doesn't work that you thought was going to be so hot and it was going to be so great and people just don't respond to it. So that can be a little bit upsetting, a little discouraging.
So what happens? I mean, what is the worst that can happen when a merchandiser gets it wrong?
I mean, that's the worst. So, okay, you've gotten it wrong. So now how do you rectify the situation? So really problem solving. So when we talked about skills before,
Right.
It's another huge skill you have to have because you have to be creative on how we're going to switch this up. What are we going to do to make it work, to make people want to respond to
This
this?
involves a lot of traveling.
Sometimes there can be some traveling. And depending on what exactly it is that you're traveling for, whether it's traveling to a store
Yes.
to see what merchandise looks like or traveling to a vendor to perhaps buy product. So there can be travel that's involved.
So you really enjoy this.
I do. I do.
And as an educator teaching FIT,
Yes.
how did this transition take place? When?
The transition took place a few years ago, and it's great because I'm able to bring that passion that I have for the industry and take it right into the classroom, but really giving them real examples. So when we talk about case studies, sometimes I can come with a true example of what they can work on. And the students seem to respond to that. They like that. And then I always try to stay as trendy as possible. So understanding what they like, what they're gravitating to. I'm always people watching so I can bring that to them and then they can relate it. And then it helps them ultimately evolve into great merchandisers.
What do you enjoy when you're in the classroom? What do you enjoy about teaching?
I enjoy the questions. I enjoy thoughtful questions. I like when I see that they're thinking critically. And even sometimes if I don't have the answer, I like that because that's telling me that they're challenging. They're challenging me. They're challenging themselves. It's not too easy for them. And I think it's probably making them the best that they can ultimately be.
a lot of people are often, when they hear the fashion industry and they hear about merchandising and they think of the word trends come up. How does that fit in?
That's a major part of it because so a trend is basically a movement. Right. So it can be a color trend where we have, maybe it's brights one season, or right now there might be pastels. So that could be one trend. It could be a trend of chunky knits versus flat knits. So it's really about what that movement is at the time. And a big part of your job is making sure that you're on top of that trend, that you're not too late for it, that you're introducing it at the right time.
I'm always curious. How do trends get started?
So it's very interesting that it's analytical in a sense where it's not something that just appears. There are really people that do research. They travel the world to see what that inspiration could possibly be. They decide on color. So when we talk about color or fabrication, that's decided about a year and a half earlier than when we actually see it in the stores. So when I say there's a business behind this, there's definitely a business there's someone called a trend forecaster. So that's what they do. They forecast what those trends are going to be. So right now we're looking at, spring is here, so gingham is going to be a huge trend. So that was decided about a year and a half ago, that gingham print.
Really?
And the way you do it to make it fashionable is what silhouette are you going to put it in to make it pretty cool.
If you had to design a dress with that, what type of dress would you design?
It depends on how large you would make those checks for that gingham, and probably something depending on the silhouette, but most likely something sleeveless, because as a dress, I don't think I want a gingham sleeve. Now, if it's a top, that's something different, but as a dress, probably sleeveless, maybe knee length, below the knee, a sheath dress could be one possible way to do it. Then what I'm also seeing, and to make it kind of cool, are doing gingham shorts. So different silhouettes, adding it, making it fun. I mean, menswear, they've had gingham shirts forever, but you could also do it in a tie. So different ways of adding it there.
Oh, this is interesting. and let's go back to teaching.
Okay.
When you first started,
yes,
what were some of your earliest challenges and perhaps fears?
Earliest was I didn't want them to know that this was my first time teaching. So just trying to come across very comfortable and knowing what I was talking about and really engaging the students in that way. And then it's so different than going from your workplace where you can kind of be the boss there to coming to a classroom where you have 27 to 28 students looking at you and you're supposed to teach them. So that can be a little challenging.
Have you ever had a situation where a student, really, really challenged your knowledge and experience? And what was that like?
Not so much maybe they challenged something I may have said or something that I thought about. And I was able to humbly take that and say, well, you know what? Then you look this up and let me know. Let me know what you think the answer is or what it should be so that we can discuss it. So I would never want to just tell them that they're wrong or that no, you're not correct. I'm not going to listen to that. No, I definitely want to hear what you have to say. So let's discuss this and see how they come back and discuss that. Because that's all a learning lesson as well.
What are they usually being prepared for in your class?
So usually they're being prepared to be buyers most of the time. That's I'm in the School of Business and Technology. So we're preparing the students to ultimately be buyers or planners or product developers.
In the industry, in the arena, I don't want you to call anybody's names, but I gathered you must have come across some very good buyers.
Yes.
And you learn from them.
Definitely.
Describe an experience you had that fascinated you, a buying experience where you learn a particular trick from someone that you incorporated into your own style.
I think it was more or less when someone lets you take the reins. So you're not just following them, but they kind of give you a piece of the business and then you can manage that because then they're more of a mentor or coach to you.
Okay.
So that skill set, just being able to enhance your skill set that way. That's probably the best way that I was able to do it, by actually taking a smaller piece of the business myself and being able to think of ideas and come to that supervisor with them and present it to them and then getting that feedback.
What is one of the most rewarding experiences you've had as a merchandiser?
I would say probably creating. So I've worked in many aspects of the business within the women's apparel part of the business, but probably creating a plus size assortment for a .com business, because the customer was there was a custom definitely a customer there, but that was kind of being underserved with more of the trendy contemporary items. And so for me to be able to go out into the market and find that for them and then deliver.
You did this.
And it's selling. Yeah. So that was a great
Personal
kudo
business?
for me. Not personal business. This is working for a company.
Oh, working for a company. Wow. Have you ever thought about getting into that kind of business for yourself?
My own retail or...
Yes. Or, yeah, something like that.
I think I'm stay away from that.
You would?
I would. Right now, at least.
Right, right.
If I did, it would probably be an online business.
Oh. What do you love most about teaching?
I think while many think that teaching is... well, some think that teaching is simple and that your hours are so short, which is not true, because you're always thinking about what am I going to bring to the classroom next? Or at least you always want to update your lesson. You always want to bring in that new hot topic that's really going to get them excited. And then besides that, you're there for the student. So you're on campus, whether they have questions about your class, or perhaps a lot of times I get people that want letters of recommendation so that they can study abroad, or they just want to talk about the industry and how can they go about getting an internship. So things like that, just always being available in that way.
What still surprises you about the industry?
Oh, there's so many things that all the time, while we continue to see that there's changes, there are some things that just don't change fast enough. I would say even the whole online business, I feel like there are some companies that just aren't as quick as others with it. They're staying very traditional, not really taking those steps to become more mainstream, even in regards to social media.
Right.
I think some are just starting to kind of understand that that's such a connection with a lot of their customers.
The social media.
The social media aspect.
Yeah. What does social media do for you? Does it intrigue you?
It does. Even though I know we should put our phones down sometimes, I think it's so interesting sometimes to just see what people are doing. And that's usually the way that I'm connected to some people, and see what good things they're doing, because it's so easy. If you just upload a picture, you hit post, and it's there.
You talk a lot about merchandising, you talk about style, and so on. How would you describe your personal style?
I think I'm pretty classic. I like to add a trend in there every now and then, but I love a great quality item that's classic item that I'll have for years and years. And then I'll just spruce it up however I want.
Yeah. Yeah. And who would you say were the biggest inspirations in your career so far?
I would say, different aspects of my career.
Let's go to the merchandising area.
So merchandising, I've had people that I haven't even worked with, but that worked in the industry. So like I mentioned before, this woman, Pinky Dukes, I just felt like she was such an inspiration because she was doing something that I wanted to do, and I got to see how she did that. There was a supervisor I had once, her name was Donna Williams. So just really great mentor and a great coach. So she really taught me everything I knew about buying, and then I was able to take that other places. There's a great woman by the name of June Ambrose. She's like a legend at Saks Fifth Avenue, and just being able to watch her on a daily basis was inspirational. So
which one of them actually took you under their wings?
Well, I would say the woman I mentioned, Donna Williams.
Donna Williams.
Yeah.
Wow, what was that relationship like?
It was great because she wasn't easy on me in any way, but she really wanted to see me succeed. So really took me under her wing and just showed me the way. So and just also how to navigate within that particular company. Also, how to navigate within that particular company.
Okay. So mentorship is very important to you.
Definitely.
Yeah. You mentor anyone?
Huge. I mentor tons of people.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow.
So
Awesome.
I'm also a member of Bragg, which their tagline is diversity from a retail point of view. So it's a nonprofit organization that focuses on people, students, entrepreneurs of color, and really elevating in the retail industry. So within that, I'm also the advisor at FIT for the Bragg Club. So I have many students there that I mentor, some within the school, some once they graduate and they'll still come back to ask questions. So I'm always open to helping them out.
What are some things you advise about in an organization like Bragg?
I think it's really, like I mentioned, being able to navigate in a company, understanding the culture. So many companies are different when you think about their culture. So first learning what that culture is, and then how do you get that exposure. So make sure that you're connecting yourself with people that you see that are well respected within that company, and try to get on their calendar in any way. Try to just sit down with them and see how they even got to the place where they are. And then mentoring that way so that they can navigate, because that's usually what it is. Someone will get hired, but then from there, how do they move up to that next level? What do they have to do in order to do
And
that?
that's very important.
Very important, because everyone can go in and you do your job and you do your job great, but then what is it that's going to get you noticed, that you'll get that exposure so that you can get those great projects to work on and then be able to kind of move up the
Do
ranks.
you have any success stories with a mentee that has, navigated the various corridors of corporate America?
I have two mentees right now that are fairly new in the industry. So they started out, they were Bragg interns. Once they graduated college, they went on to an executive training program, and now they've been promoted in different areas. So it's great to see that they've already started to make those moves.
How long has Bragg been in existence?
It started in 1970.
1970?
Yeah.
Wow, how did you learn about Bragg?
I learned about it actually after graduating from college. A friend of mine invited me to a meeting. So I didn't know anything about it. And then I went to this meeting and I realized what a great organization this is, and I wanted to be a part of it. So that was about 10 years ago.
So how does anyone become a part of Bragg?
You can definitely go to the website. So it's braggusa.org. And that actually gives you more information about the
Okay.
organization. But then there's also the membership part there as well.
Awesome. Let's take a quick break.
Okay.
All right. We are back with Miss Laticha Brown. Leticia, when you think about fashion,
Yes.
what comes to mind?
Let's see. Creativity, design, color, texture, fit.
Yeah. And I asked you just now about what you like a lot about teaching. What are some of your pet peeves?
I think with working with students, when you see that they're not trying, that's a pet peeve, because I don't want to see anyone miss an opportunity just because they didn't do an assignment or just because they didn't come to class. I think that's something that really gets to me.
Yes, dear.
Yeah.
Are you a strict teacher? Stern?
I'm fair.
Fair.
Yes.
I like that answer. I like that answer. It encompasses so much. I am fair.
Yes. I am fair.
What surprised you the most when you first started teaching at FIT?
I think I thought that all the students were going to come in and just know everything there is to know about fashion, but some of them, they didn't. They just have an interest and they wanted to learn so much of it. So that creates a nice balance there, so that you can kind of give information, they're taking it in, and you continue to do that with each other, whether they're teaching me and I'm teaching them as well.
Have you ever had a desire to actually design?
Not a
No.
well, I have the desire to tell someone what I want something to look like,
Okay.
but I'm not a designer. No.
You wouldn't go there.
No. I know
You,
my strengths. I know my strengths.
what comes next for you? What are you planning? What are your plans?
I think, well, on my vision board, so who knows when this will happen. So within the industry, I would love to have a brand of my own.
Yeah.
I would love to perhaps have a brand where it's on like an HSN or QVC and I'm hosting that show about that brand. So that's something that I would be very interested in. I'm also very passionate about event planning, so really expanding on my business there. So
So,
doing that, and that's in regards to kind of the career part of my life.
so you are an entrepreneur and been doing event planning for a while.
Yes.
What initiated that? When did that start?
I think it's just always been in me because I'm a planner, I'm an organizer. So whenever there's an event that's going on, I would just initially just do it. And then I realized that, that aha moment, like this could be a great business for me because it's something I'm passionate about. So really starting off with Bragg, so being the co-chair for their annual gala for about 7 years, and then also planning many weddings. So it's just something that I enjoy. It's stressful, yes, but it's something that I like, and I always have fun at it.
What was like a stressful aspect of it?
I think just timing wise, a lot of times, just because you're on usually a strict timeline, making sure things stay on that timeline. And once something goes off of it, it kind of backs everything else up. So that can be a little bit stressful. You can have a stressful bride, of course, with dealing with a wedding. But then even with maybe a gala or something like that, just making sure vendors have placement of maybe there's some items that you ordered for them and they're supposed to be there at a certain time to set up. Just things like that, making sure that you're on time.
What are some very important soft skills when you're an event planner?
I would say, besides the presentation or presenting, just being able to be compassionate and build a relationship with someone. So making sure that they feel comfortable around you, that you have that, and it feels natural. So you always want someone to feel comfortable and that they think that you're genuinely interested in maybe what they have to say
So
or
you
what
can't
they're
take
griping about.
You can't take certain things personally.
Not at all. Not at all. And you know that coming in.
Right.
Like this is not personal, so don't get upset.
What are some things you learned as a merchandiser that you've brought into the classroom?
I would say that when I talk about the whole presentation,
Yes.
having those presentation skills,
Yes.
having those presentation skills, that's so important. So whether it's me going from strategy and merchandising to how I present to the class, and then ultimately how I want them to present whether it's presenting a project or when they have to present themselves in an interview. So I always want to make sure the way I'm presenting myself to them, that they can see that and ultimately hopefully gain something from that and pull some of those little tricks from that.
And you love this. You just
I do.
Just
I do.
love this. Yeah.
Yep.
Would you actually do you still do merchandising or
Consulting a little bit on
What are
special
some-
projects.
what are some highs and lows about merchandising?
Well, I mean, the business, you never know what's going to happen. And even something as simple as the weather, that could either make your business great or it can kill your business if depending on what you buy. So, I mean, this winter, if you bought cold weather goods, then yeah, you had a great business. But on the flip side, let's say it's a winter that's not so cold. Then your business is kind of like, then you're really doing that whole problem solving thing again, and you're just trying to figure out what can make it work. And that's just seasonal. But there can be things that, just like I talked about with trends, and you thought that something was going to be so great, and you really went after it, and you bought so many units to put into the store, and then nobody's responding to it. So then you're marking it down. So that, that may hurt a little bit because a lot of this is from your gut. So, but then you just have to keep on trying, get back out there, and do it again.
Teaching. If someone comes to you, a young woman,
Yes.
and says, "Look, I would like to teach at FIT," what advice would you give them?
Well, the great thing about FIT is we really want people that have had experience in the industry because then you're able to bring that back. So that's what makes us so special. So I would definitely give them that piece of advice that if they really wanted to teach here at this school at FIT, to definitely get out there, get that experience, and then come back.
What are some design trends that have caught your eyes recently?
I would say, well, right now, coming off of fall was huge. Fringe was huge. So you saw a fringe on jackets, you saw a fringe on boots, on handbags. So you saw it all over the place. Blanket coats. So, and this actually years ago, there was kind of this blanket coat trend, but that was fun, very comfy, warm. The silhouettes have gotten boxier, so it wasn't so form-fitting anymore, at least this past fall that we just had. Things were a little bit boxier. And then this whole athletic wear. So wearing things that maybe it looks like you're going to the gym or it's some type of feel or silhouette like that, but maybe you're just going out for brunch with friends. So kind of
Silhouette.
that feel, that whole silhouette.
What about men trends? What's coming up for spring?
I would say, well, men's trends, because your silhouettes pretty much stay the same, I think it always lends into color and into fabrication of what you're wearing. So what can you like spruce up with your wardrobe with? So whether it's a pop of color or if it's a different fabrication that you might have, or even there's been this huge men's sock trend. So socks. So not just your basic socks, but socks with prints and designs. That's become very fun and exciting for the men's business.
Well, that's coming this.
Well, it's here, and I think
here.
it's going to continue as well.
And when you say construction, so, right? Can you elaborate a little bit? Like,
so for men
For men,
or construction, I mean, and we have seen that the pants have gotten a little slimmer. So, and it all depends on what you feel comfortable in, and I think that's something that, at least in the men's world, that usually drives that type of business. So if you don't feel comfortable in a skinny jean, you're probably not going to wear that.
Right.
But you may get your pant just a tad bit skinnier than what it was maybe a few years ago. And then we see there's always the sneaker trend. So what sneakers are hot right now? We know that Kanye West just had a line that he had a sneaker created with Adidas, but then he also has his clothing line that has come out. So that's someone, when we talk about celebrities doing fashion as well, he's someone that's been very popular. Same thing with Pharrell. They've been popular in the men's world.
and if someone wants to start like the business of event planning, what advice would you give them?
I would say try to start small at first and really just maybe it's a simple event that's going on in your family so that you really get the skill set of understanding the organization of it. So what goes into that? What are those details that you have to do? Are you buying supplies and do you have to rent equipment? So really getting through your checklist that way, starting maybe with a smaller event, but then also being creative with it. Because that's the whole point of usually why someone, well, maybe part of why someone may hire an event planner. Maybe they just don't have the time, so they want to hire someone. But then maybe they also want their vision to be executed a certain way so that if someone has that creative mind, maybe they can create something where that vision of what that person had can be executed and it can be just this fabulous event.
What does your mom think about what you do and who you are today?
She thinks I'm always all over the place, but I think she's excited by that I have such passion and I'm always getting up and going and doing something. So she's pretty proud of that.
Talking about getting up and go, you're supposed to be traveling sometime soon.
Yes, I'm leaving next Friday.
Next Friday.
For China, yes.
China. Are you excited?
Very excited. Very excited. The culture, the food, the people, the students. I'm very excited.
And what do you hope to bring to China and to bring away from China?
I hope to bring a point of view to bring my point of view and then also more of a Western civilization point of view to the students there. But then I want to see what they're thinking about. What are the trends that they think are exciting and hot and kind of bring that back as well.
And why you think you were like chosen to make this trip?
I think, well, the class that I'm teaching, I've taught here, and I've done very well with that. So my chairperson thought it would be great for me to be able to
Awesome.
do that and have that experience. So I'm very
Karen,
thankful for that.
Karen G said many creative teen may want to get into the fashion industry. What's the best route you would advise them to take?
I would say if they're able to, especially if they live here in New York City and teenagers, we actually have something at FIT. It's called Summer Live, and it's where it's kind of like a pre-college. So it's for middle school students, and then they also have it for high school students, and there are tons of classes that are offered where they can be introduced into the industry and see if that's something that they would really be interested in.
Oh, I'm curious about this. Right? What drives you nuts about being you and
About being
being you?
okay.
What drives you nuts about being Leticia Brown?
I would say, I think before when I mentioned just doing so much.
Right.
So I don't know if I would ever stop doing that, but I think that kind of drives me crazy. And I always say, like, I want to get 8 hours of sleep. Well, that's not happening, 8 hours of sleep a night. So that drives me a little crazy. And then I'm always adding something on to my plate. But I don't know if it drives me nuts or it just drives me.
Right. Oh,
You know?
okay. That's good. That's good. What do you enjoy? What aspect of being Leticia Brown you really enjoy?
I think making that change. So especially with the students, because it's something I can see in a person. And really, I like when I start with maybe someone who wasn't exactly sure what they want to do. Maybe they're not as polished yet, and kind of just helping them along and helping to groom them. And then they ultimately get that job or that position that they wanted. That's a really good feeling for me. I'm actually seeing that happen right now with a young lady who's doing that, and she's going to study abroad, and I just see really good things happening for her.
For those days when you don't feel like getting up and doing what you have to do, who or what gets you out of that mindset?
I mean, I do it. I pray to God, and then He taps me on the shoulder and pushes me on my way, and then you make it happen.
Music. Or let me ask you the question this way. If you had to go to a favorite place to relax
Okay.
with a favorite book or a favorite thing to read, um, your favorite drink, and your favorite music, where would this place be? What
Ooh.
book would you be reading or thing will you be reading? What drink will you be drinking? And what music will you be listening to?
Okay, tell me the first part again is the place.
Yes, a favorite place that you like to go on, just be Leticia, be relaxed.
Okay.
Yeah.
This, you know what? I enjoy a good Miami trip every now and then. Good
Miami,
South Beach trip every now and then.
South Beach, okay.
Just for a
Okay.
quick getaway, weekend getaway.
Uh,
Because you can just be,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
The the book, so if I'm in my Miami mode, probably there's an author that I like, Emily Griffin. So her books are usually pretty fun. But if I wanted to kind of think about my life and what's going on, there's a new book that talks about the magic of tidying up your life by a woman. Her name is Marie Kondo, I believe. And it's really talking about decluttering. So everything from like your home to you yourself. So that's something I would probably add if it's anytime soon. My drink would probably be a prosecco, perhaps, depending on what time of day. Maybe it's a Bellini if it's early in the morning, then into a prosecco. And what's my last part?
What music will you be listening to?
My music, I don't know. I might just have it on shuffle, so it can be anything from a little jazz, R&B, hip hop, just a range there.
I like that. Let's take a quick break.
Okay.
We're back with Leticia Brown. Leticia, if you could change anything about you,
Okay.
what would you change?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. All right. Let's switch it
Yeah.
up a
We're
little.
not changing anything.
Let's switch it
Okay.
up a little.
Okay.
If If you could change anything about your experience in merchandising, what would it be?
Okay. I think, well, you know what? This does go back to me because kind of understanding your worth
Mm-hmm.
and really going after things and speaking up. So when we talk about that a lot about how people, especially women, we should speak up, and we talk about this whole lean in. I'm trying to think of the word there, but I can't think right now. But anyway, what I want to say is I think I would have probably spoke up a little bit more in regards to my career and what I wanted to see happen in my career, rather than sometimes I think we sit back and wait for someone to do it for us,
Yes.
but really going after it that way. So
Good
that's
answer.
something I probably would have changed. I think now, knowing that, hindsight 2020, but knowing that now, telling myself probably 10 years ago to do that, I would have.
Tell us how spirituality has influenced your work.
I think, well, it's part of me. It's part of me. So then that comes out in my work, I would say. And I think people even notice it just from the spirit that I have. And then I try to come across with that. So trying to live the best life that I could possibly live, trying to follow God's word and understanding that. So that's how I take my day each and every day. And I go out with that, kind of knowing that.
What matters to you most as an educator?
Making sure that people aren't just kind of sliding through, that they're really understanding, getting the best education they possibly can get, and really setting themselves up for success.
Where do you draw your inspiration?
I draw it from many places. I think I draw it from family, a great deal of it from my family, also from friends, just from things that I might see that is going on culturally and what's going on probably even in our city and in our country. So drawing inspiration from that.
In the chat room, Borby said, apart from the bright side of the fashion industry, what are the negative aspects? What are your thoughts about people who are prone to being slaves to fashion?
Well, I think that goes back to who you are, the person that you are. So we should never be a slave to this industry, right? That you should always have be very strong within yourself. And it's great to love fashion and to love these things, but it should never take over your life, whereas maybe other things are put to the side. So if you have responsibilities, that should be taken care of first, and then we can add fashion in there as well. I think that's probably how I see it as well. And I probably take it from that point because I come from the industry where I know how much something costs to make it. So I just feel like I can never pay this amount because I know how much,
Really?
we paid for that. And that's just me coming from the industry and knowing the industry that way.
So I'm sure some of the women are asking these questions. What is it like for you shopping, knowing the industry, and there's this beautiful dress or a garment that you love, but you feel it's a little overpriced. What happens then?
So that becomes tough because you do know that, and I think we all know that there's a markup here.
Right.
So and it's being smart on how you're shopping as well. I try not to shop when I know I have an event. Like if I know that I have an event, I hope that I had already shopped for something like months prior so that maybe I caught something on a sale or I was able to get something great quality. Of course, I always like something with good quality, but I'm being very smart about how I'm doing that. And also going different places to shop. There's nothing wrong with shopping off-price retailer like a TJ Maxx or a Marshall's, and then also you have some of your high end. So it's really balancing that out. But then I also just go back to being responsible, making sure that your immediate needs are taken care of, and then whatever discretionary you have left over, that you're using that for your fashion buys. So that'd be my one little tip for everyone.
What do you enjoy most about your job, your career?
So my career in education.
Yes.
I think I have great colleagues that I'm working with, and just hearing some of their experiences and being able to even take that sometimes into the classroom. And then, like I mentioned before, just the different types of students that I'm working with. So from all walks of life, all ethnic groups, so international, right here from the U.S. So I'm being able to all be in one classroom and kind of talk about the industry.
Okay. And what are some myths about the fashion industry?
I think a major myth is that the designers dictate everything that goes on in the
No?
industry. No, ultimately it's the customer, right? Because whoever's paying, they're the person that's dictating what goes on. Another myth kind of is that it's this mysterious world, that it's just fun and flash, and that's not necessarily it. Even as a buyer, you're only, and if you go to a fashion show, because maybe you're buying something that there aren't even fashion shows, but if you're going to fashion shows, that's usually probably twice a year for the big shows. Other than that, you're probably in an office, you're crunching numbers, you're analyzing a business, so it's not as glamorous most times that many may think.
Do you ever give yourself a hard time?
Of course, I think everyone does. Always want to see things done a little bit better, always pushing yourself. I don't think you can ever kind of just fall back and think that things are all good.
When are you most happy?
I think I'm most happy early in the morning when it's kind of quiet before a workout, like kind of just thanking God for another day and thanking Him for my family. So that's when I'm usually most happy. And then also when I go to visit my family, just kind of sitting around them laughing. That's always fun.
Finish this sentence.
Okay.
I look forward to Sunday evenings too.
To eat well
Uh-huh.
and just prepare for the next exciting week.
What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the woman that I am right now and the woman that I'm becoming. And also being proud of taking a career, a great career in fashion, and being able to take it to the education side of the business, I like to say, and just really teaching these students what's going on in the industry and kind of seeing their eyes light up and really seeing them succeed. That's what
And what are
I've been
you
most
most
proud of.
thankful for?
I'm thankful for great family, great life, good health.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 16-year-old self?
I would tell her to keep doing the things that she's doing at that time. Don't slow down. Keep doing it. Keep pushing yourself.
What is one thing about you that most people are surprised to know when they get to know you?
I think that well, I think most people know that I have a humorous side, but I think maybe they don't know right off the bat that I like to tell jokes and
Oh,
to
you
have a
do?
good time and to have fun.
Looking back on the long arc of your career, you know, merchandising and teaching, what did you say you got right? What would you say you got wrong? Just one of each. I know you mentioned just now about speaking up, so perhaps you can give another one. But what would you say? What would you say you got right?
It's tough. Um,
I'll tell you what. While you're thinking about that
uh-huh.
one, let me go to the chat room. Karen
Okay.
G said, "Women and presentation of themselves, men and their presentation. What has this exposure taught you, and that would be great for us to know about the impact of presentation."
So the difference between how women present and men present, is that the question or
Let me read it over because
okay.
I might have done the question injustice. Women and presentation of themselves, men and their presentation. What has this exposure taught you that would be great for us to know about the impact of presentation, how important it is?
Well, I think okay, so yes, both women and men present differently, but I think with women sometimes we're not as assertive with our thoughts. I think when we have a thought that we really feel strongly about, that we should present it that way and not always. I think sometimes we may sit back a little bit and wait for that approval, but not doing that, like really going after it and understanding why it's important. And it's also the way in which you're doing this presentation because you want to come across as someone that's a team player and people want to work with, but then you also want to come across with I'm very serious about this and I need you to understand that. And I think usually men, that's how they come across just from the beginning. It's not something that they really have to think about. I think it's just probably innate.
What drives you? What makes you get up every day and do what you do?
I think just wanting to whether it's making a change or just wanting to see what's new today, what else is going to happen today. So just being excited about the new day.
I think Karen G came back and she said how we carry ourselves. I think that's what she was talking about, presentation, like how we carry ourselves. How important is that?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
You get it.
That's so important. So whether it's in the street going to work, whether it's in the workplace, how you carry yourself, that's your picture. That's how people are going to see you and they're going to perceive you, whether you're the smartest person in the room, all depending on what that presentation looks like. So I'm not saying you have to go out and do this whole makeover or anything like that, but it's really about kind of that inner and how it's coming out and how you're presenting yourself in that way.
My final question, which
Okay.
I ask all my guests, you don't get to escape.
Okay.
What makes you laugh out loud?
That right there would make me laugh out loud. But outside of that, I think so I have a really close group of girlfriends. So whether it's two of us or if there's seven of us, just being together, just people, and not even telling jokes, just their different personalities and the way they may say something that makes me laugh out loud. And it's kind of freeing. You feel really good behind that. So I would say definitely those groups of girlfriends.
Those groups.
Yes.
Well, Leticia, first of all, I must thank you so much for coming and spending your time with us. The time just flies out.
It did.
Right? And
Yes.
I enjoy it. You know, you've been informative and candid, you know, entertaining, I must say. So thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I really
you're
appreciate
welcome.
it. This was great.
You're welcome. What surprised you about CWS?
I think I was just surprised. I didn't know what to expect. But I love the format because it's a conversation. But sometimes with interviews, I would say people may prep you with certain questions and then it's kind of like that kind of back and forth. But this, it's flowing. It's a great conversation and really good topics as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Fear not what fear whispers to you. Fear your obedience to it. Good night.
Good night.